in your presence, safe in your presence.
That's where I long to be.
Oh God, thank you, Jesus.
That's where I long to be.
There is joy in your presence. Thank you, Jesus.
That's where I long to be.
Good morning and welcome everyone back to Sabbath School. We are so excited to have you. We are in this quarter talking about education, and we have two guests with us at this moment that we will go ahead and introduce to you. But once again, we want to let you know that this quarter's education is almost done. We have just one more Sabbath to talk about it. And this lesson was lesson 12, talking about the Sabbath, experiencing and living the character of work. Yes, we're going to talk about how the Sabbath factors into education. And this week we have with us two guest speakers. Yes, indeed, two guests. And our first guest is Brother Neale Davis. He used to teach here in Tampa, Florida at Elam. He has been 25 years as an educator, and currently he is at Northern Virginia Community College. So we just welcome him to be here with us today. We're excited. And then we have with us Pastor Sister Céline Cozéma. She is a graduate of Oakwood University from theology. So she is our sister in Christ there in ministry. And currently she is doing her CPEs for chaplaincy. So she's going into chaplaincy, y'all, but she took time out to be with us on this Sabbath, to go ahead and be our guest panelist. So we're gonna have Brother Neale Davis do Sunday and Monday's lesson, Time to be Astonished and Time for Rediscovery. And then we'll have Sister Céline Cozéma do for us Time for Learning Priorities and Time for Finding Balance in Tuesdays and Wednesdays lesson. And so before we begin, we would just like to ask Pastor Cozéma if you can just open us up with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to lift up your name, be with each and every one of us, and fill us with your Holy Spirit, that everything we say this morning can be to your glory, and that we can be enlightened by your Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And now we just want, like I said, we just want to talk about the Sabbath. You know, I love our memory verse for this week. It says, and this is Mark chapter 2, verses 27 and 28, New King James Version. It says, and he said to them, talking about Jesus, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath. That's a wonderful, wonderful verse. And we're going to talk about just how much the Sabbath is made for man. And I do enjoy the story that was there to open us up with in our lesson, talking about Jody and her friend Gail. And this Jody was in her graduate program, and she befriended Gail, who was not a Sabbath keeper like herself. But when Gail's husband went out of town for 6 weeks, Gail spent time with Jody on the weekends. And so with those 6 weeks, Gail spent 6 Friday nights with Jody. And then it says for 4 Friday nights, they ate together, they played music, they shared their Christian experiences, and they enjoyed each other's company. Now the 5th weekend came and Gail went downtown to shop. And don't you know that eventually as the Sabbath was coming, she looked at her watch and she thought, oh my, the Sabbath is coming. The Sabbath is coming. And so Gail realized that the 4 Friday nights that she had spent with her friend Jody, learning and observing the Sabbath, that she had experienced something new in her Christian walk, and that she had grown. She had learned more of her God and deepened her faith, and that the Sabbath gave her an opportunity for education and personal development. Now that's just Gail's story, y'all. And I'm sure that there's many more individuals just like Gail who can testify to that opportunity for growing closer to God and developing personally, that many of us have experienced in coming into observing the Sabbath. And one of my friends sent me a meme the other day, and he said, I don't keep the Sabbath keeps me. And I enjoy that. I thanked him for sending that to me. And so I want to, from the outset, to let us know that the Sabbath keeps us. It gives us many grand opportunities to be kept by God and get to know God and also grow. So now, before I say anything else, I'm going to turn the mic over to Brother Neale Davis so that he can now go into Sunday and Monday's lesson so we can talk more about this. Brother Davis, you have the mic.
Yes, ma'am. It is a pleasure. Again, thank you for inviting me. Mount Calvary, my old church. I was a longtime member there and have very fond memories of Mount Calvary. So now that the pleasantries are over, just want to talk about Sunday's lesson, time to be astonished, time to be astonished. And it talks about, they go into detail about Adam and Eve and how Adam is seeing the first time he sees an elephant. And it discusses that. It talks about all of these firsts that he had, and find that to be very interesting. And we think, okay, here's a Sabbath. Adam obviously did not have a Sabbath of having church and then having a meeting afterward and then choir rehearsal and things of that nature. And for many, you'll hear them say that that's what the Sabbath is to me. I go to church for a long time, especially if you're a child, go to church for a long time. My parents are in meetings all day. We had to sit through these long rehearsals or whatever the case is. And at that point, the Sabbath doesn't become a delight. One word that really caught my attention was, it says that the Sabbath could not have been a passive experience for Adam and Eve. So by no means was it passive. As an educator, you think of how many ways can you get a point across. So there are times when you have your lesson plan prepared and you're ready and you come in and they don't get it. And so at that point now you have to find a different way to make sure that the point gets across, that they understand the lesson. You utilize best practices, all of the different things that you have to do as an educator, but you have to find different ways in order to make the point get across. And I think where some of us have fallen short is that we've accepted that that is what the Sabbath is supposed to be. This very passive experience. We dress up, we go to church, we are there sometimes all day long, and we come back home and that's it. Instead of utilizing all of the arsenal that God has has provided for us. So if we look at the fact that it's the beautiful weather in Tampa, Virginia, I don't have this luxury with the snow and what we've had to experience just the past few days with the cold weather. But that's the one thing that's what I miss the most, in addition to my friends from Tampa, is the weather. That you have the beautiful weather. So instead of making it something where, again, it's just always, if we're not in meetings at church all day, then we'll come home and watch Veggie Tales if they're young enough, or we'll watch something, or we'll just sleep, or whatever the case is. And all of those very passive experiences. If we took the time to say, all right, let's go look, we're going to go to the park and we're going to, how many different trees and what story do you think this tree tells, or things of that nature. And your kids may think you're corny at first, but after a while, once they start to see this is, now the Sabbath has become something different. Yes, we're going to go to church and we're going to sing and we'll pray and we'll do all of those different things, but then also we're going to do this thing together. So I'm a big health advocate. So I'm also someone who's into personal training and health and fitness, and that's the area in which I teach now at the community college. So I'm big on health as well. So we know in Adventism, we learned about New Start, nutrition and exercise, and water and sunlight and all of those different things. What a way now to be able to get out in the sunlight and get the vitamins that come from sunlight and get the exercise that's involved, and also have family time to now say, all right, let's look at this and let's look at what stories do we think that we see with this. And, it's a different way now to approach the Sabbath. So we're looking at it as from Sunday's lesson, that was the biggest thing that I got. We don't want a passive experience. And we don't want something to be, all right, this is what I do for Sabbath now. And of course, with the new normal of, all right, well, I watch this church on Zoom and I'll watch this. And when the California churches come out in that area or in the West Coast, I'll watch that. And then that's my Sabbath. And the Sabbath has gone by when we haven't really taken advantage of an opportunity. We do that passively as well, instead of saying, let me see what I can do to explore like Adam and Eve might have done. Let me see what I can do to take this walk and just soak in all of what God has given for us and what he's created. And man, I wonder what it's going to look like in heaven. Let me try to compare this with that. Just kind of take time to come in and just breathe. Just to let it all go. You don't have to worry about the Zoom meetings at work or whatever, or the meetings that should have been emails, or what, all of those things that bring you frustration. Now you get to kind of cast those cares away and just focus on the Lord and his creation and what the Sabbath is all about, and things of that nature. You're looking at it, talks about educational opportunities, and the question at the bottom of the lesson, what educational opportunities did they have? We can do the same thing. We know that for our children, we want them to be able to learn, and we know that as adults, we want to be lifelong learners. So always learning something or getting some other certification, or whether it's going back to school. And if that's not the case, we're just learning new things. So whether it means we're watching less television and listening to more news-related things or scientific-related things or things of that nature, now we're becoming more of the type of learners that we like to be. And we can utilize the Sabbath to do some of the same things, to look at what God has done and all of these different things. And it can put you in a mindset to be ready to take on that next week, when now back to these Zoom meetings and back to being, remote, and the frustrations that have come with this new normal that we're dealing with. So it's a way not only for us to enjoy the Sabbath and to keep it holy, but also then to be re-energized for the next week. I think that's something that could help as well in regards to our approach. And I could go on all day. So again, let me make sure we get now to Monday's lesson. So Monday's lesson, a time for rediscovery. So we know we know the prefix re, we're talking about again. So now we're discovering something again. The children of Israel, it talks about the children of Israel and how we know that they complained, that had been in slavery, and the Egyptians had treated them horribly. And now finally they feel that finally God has heard our prayer. We've seen the miracles that took place, how we've crossed the Red Sea, and shortly thereafter, there they go, mumbling again. They're upset. It's as if they totally forgot what was done for them, like I might have done as a child, where here my parents are taking care of me and providing all of this for me, but this one thing I didn't get, and so now I'm frustrated as a result. So as a result of their frustration or the way that they'd been behaving, now they had to learn again. God had to provide miracles again. Here he's provided all these miracles, and they've totally forgotten what he's done for them. So now he's giving them a chance to rediscover exactly who he is. They're complaining, we're in the middle of a desert, there's nothing here that grows. We know there was no refrigeration and that type of thing there. It wasn't like they could go to the outdoor market or go to the grocery store. Now here he's providing this food for them. And it's food that's tasty, it's clean, it's healthy, all the things that they need. It tastes good, so it's not something where I don't want to eat that manna again. Everything that they needed is now provided for them. So he's providing this. They're rediscovering who he is, and wow, this is the God that provides, and it's so awesome because God is so many different things to us. So for some people who don't struggle with money, they maybe might not ever have to deal with the wonder of what's going to happen with this bill. How is this bill going to get paid? Or how am I going to get my child into school, or whatever the case is. God has been so much to so many different people. And now they had to realize rediscover who this healer was again, to realize, all right, he's a healer, he's a miracle worker, and they're seeing the miracles again. And so with this rediscovery, he showed them, all right, this is what you need to do. These are explicit instructions that I've given you. You have to collect this manna, and then there's going to be there'll be a double portion before the Sabbath, so you won't again have to worry about it. And so they had their opportunity, again now to rediscover. And there's nothing like rediscovering something. So to rediscover who he was and what he could provide. I know that there's a joy in, there may have been something that you enjoy doing as a child and you didn't really get a chance to do it again. And now as you age and then you have a little bit more time, you rediscover your love for whatever it was, music. Oh, I want to play the piano again, or I want to have more time to read again. And now I'm having time to read, I'm rediscovering this. Or somebody in a relationship where they're rediscovering, this is what I liked about him as a young man, and this is what I'm seeing, or this is why I married this woman. This is why I love my parent, because I'm rediscovering things about them. So I think in regards to the rediscovery, I love the fact that he provided that example for them, for the children of Israel to rediscover. He's the same God that helped us cross the Red Sea, and he's going to take us through this wilderness, and we'll be able to now go to this promised land that we have. So real quickly, it talks about you're talking to a teenager who's finding Sabbath boring. So for some people, they didn't mind staying late with their friends and rehearsals and these things that we talked about, but it doesn't work for everybody. So now we're looking at how can we find ways for children to rediscover, okay, this child is interested in science. All right, how can we show God's creation for science for them to rediscover their love of it and to make the Sabbath something where they now are thinking of it as a delight instead of thinking of it as a burden. So it's important that we discover who our children are and what makes them click, and then how we can not only utilize education, but everything that God has provided for them. So now find out that the Sabbath can now be a delight. This can be enjoyable because we know that on Sabbaths, I'm going to do this with my mother or my father. I'm going to rediscover something that I really enjoy doing. And this is something that we do, and we have it specifically saved for the Sabbath. So now the Sabbath becomes an experience that becomes a much more pleasurable experience instead of looking at it as a doom and gloom type of experience. And so we might not all be educators professionally, but we also have to make sure that we're finding ways to educate our children or to provide lifelong learning for us as well. So that, I think the rediscovery portion of it all was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I have kids, and when I deal with them on the Sabbath, I try to remind myself of how I felt as a kid when I heard about all these, oh, we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't do. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, what do we do?
Right.
You know, yeah. So
Mhm.
I was like, you keep sending me down. I'm like, what do we do? Because I came into Sabbath keeping as a teenager.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, I had a lot more questions. But my church was a very active church that I came into. And as a matter of fact, they allowed me to come into many of the activities and even take on some other roles before I became Adventist.
Oh, okay.
So that even prompted me to do, to become and to do more in the church. So so when I deal with my kids, I try more to say, well, okay, talk about what we do. We still have to explain the boundaries and the principles of Sabbath keeping, but I try to explain what we can do. What is it all about? The foundation of Sabbath keeping, and I pretty much tell them my experience as well, because I tell them, I said, listen, the Sabbath, and I know sometimes I know they want to talk to me about certain things, and I said, well, I stopped them and I said, whoa. It's a Sabbath. It's a Sabbath. This is mommy's chance to not even think about some of those things. And it's like you said, it's time to rejuvenate. Right. Where I don't have to be concerned about school and schoolwork, the bills, what's going to happen come Sunday or Monday, and just take not only a physical break but a mental break. And I try to put that with my kids. I said, this is the time where you take a mental break. Right. And then also too, like you mentioned, each kid is different. And so I have one that really likes to be outside. I don't mind sitting in and getting a little Sabbath nap in, but I have one that wants to be out there and into everything. Oh boy. But that's how that one child is. And so it's very meaningful. Sometimes I have to say, well, okay, it's not all about you and your Sabbath keeping. You have to get on out there with this one, and we go and do things. And so yes, so you might have, for those of you who are listening, you might have some kids. And then you have some that are quiet players, and then some who want to get outside there and be with others, a whole group, and be out there and have some fun. And having fun is not evil on the Sabbath.
Well, you have those who said that miracles or healing was a problem on the Sabbath. So we look at it, it is. That type of attitude is totally juxtaposed. That is the total opposite of what God created for the Sabbath to be. We think of what we look at the modern Sabbath now. Again, Adam and Eve didn't have any meetings and they didn't have any of that. So what did they do? Obviously, you have all of these people who worshipped on the Sabbath and kept the Sabbath holy. How did they do it before all of these modern things that we now have? And we seem to think that those are the only things. We have to stay right in that little area, and we can't come out of that at all. So I think when we look at that and look at ways to, we want to keep our children in the church. So we know that that's an issue where people are leaving. I see people from my generation that are leaving, and so how do we keep them involved? And also benefit ourselves as well, because you're going to learn more just from trying to find different ways to make the Sabbath a delight. To just say, okay, I'm going to try something new, and it might take a little research, or here, let's work on this together, something of that nature. So I think all of that helps. Instead of, like you said, you have to take yourself out of the picture. Someone else you're responsible, who's responsible for for, and they can't just leave on their own. They can't do exploration on their own. It's going to involve you. You might want to take, hey, we'll do this compromise. We're going to take a walk for an hour. Then we're going to come back in. Mommy's going to take a nap, or daddy's going to take a nap. They're tired, but we got to do some of this together, and then maybe we can talk about what we saw, something of that nature. And then that way now becomes family time. You're keeping the Sabbath holy. You're exploring God's creation. And now the whole idea of what the Sabbath is becomes a totally different experience. So it doesn't, again, have to be something that's a burden, and now becomes a delight.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm glad you said it, because I just thought about my other child is, we would say, you always contemplate the faith of the universe. You're always out there somewhere in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have those children too, who, like you said, if you take the Bible, sometimes when you say, hey, how do you view this? There's always something new to rediscover in the Bible.
Yes.
There's always something new. And I also try to have my kids say, just contemplate, think about it. And don't think you're going too far out. I said, because probably God wants you to come out of that boxed way of thinking and think about him in more grander terms,
Mm-hmm.
So whenever, we're talking about people and things in the Bible, and we're discovering them, I try to say, man, think about it this way, or how do you see this? Or, because this generation sees things a bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always try to get my kids a little bit more open-minded. If they go a little bit too far left or right, then, I say, listen,
You rein them in, right?
Come on back. but I give them that freedom. And so we ought to do that with kids, give them a freedom to ask questions about God, rediscover who he is, and go a bit deeper in their minds to conceptualize who God really is. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Pastor Cozéma. You want to chime in, or you geared up for your section?
No, everything was really interesting, and it reminds me when I was growing up in France. So all my friends that were going in birthday parties on Saturdays, and I had to go to church, and I was like, why do I have to go to church? I want to go to the birthday party. So
Right.
yeah, I'm thinking about all of that, and I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't easy. Like when you were young, you really you just want to enjoy life. You don't really see church as a delight or anything like that, because like you cannot watch TV, you cannot go to the birthday party. Your friends go to play outside and do whatever they want to do, but you can't. It's always we don't do. Okay, what do we do? We go to church.
You're right. And I asked that question. I think some folk probably thought I was a cheeky little kid.
I was born in the church, so like even me being born in the church, I was like, why? Like, why I cannot go to the birthday party? And I went to church every day since I was born, but I still ask why I cannot go. So
and I'm glad you mentioned that perspective, because you were born and raised in the Adventist church.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't come in until I was already, going into I was in high school when I got baptized. So yeah, I do remember missing my Saturday cartoons. Now, like that I missed. Don't you know it? Yes, I did. I had my cartoon lineup. Those were the days of Cartoon Network just came in, and Saturday cartoons. So yeah, I was like, man, I'm missing my cartoon. but I kind of experienced a lot on the outside, not being Adventist from young. No, I was Baptist, and my dad was a Baptist minister as well. He still is. And so I grew up in the Baptist church, but we did all that stuff. Even on Sunday, we went grocery shopping. Sunday wasn't kept like the Sabbath was kept.
Right.
And so coming into the Adventist church, it was a little bit different. But that's why I appreciate my original home church. Now, shout out, I'm going to give a shout out. Shout out to Peter's Rest SDA Church in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, because they kept us active back then. Now, I know they had a fire some time ago, so I pray that they're building back up by the grace of God. But I'm telling you, they were very intentional about keeping us active in church. And I was so busy that after a while, I forgot about my Saturday cartoons. No, I honestly did. I honestly did forget about the Saturday cartoons and all the, shopping on Saturday and whatever else that came with it. Because we were busy. They kept us busy from Friday night doing stuff, small groups, Saturday, all day Saturday. And when I said I wasn't even a member of the church, and I felt like we would lock the church. I felt like we were the deacons.
Right.
Me and my mama, And I wasn't even a member yet, I'm telling you, and we would have Saturday night socials. And man, when I tell you, you had some Adventists that knew how to have a good time on a social. And sometimes we didn't get home until 1 a.m. I'm just saying, and then we had to come back Sunday morning for Pathfinders. So, we were kept very busy. And so I really do appreciate my home church. And I think those are some of the things that even with our generation here, that we need to institute some of those same things going forward, because I want my children to still enjoy church like I did. That's something that I want them to truly have. And like you said, not just be like, oh, well, so-and-so's having a birthday party. Why can't I not go? But we can say, well, here, we're having this that you enjoy doing. What you can't go to the birthday party right today, but this is what else we're doing in its place. And this is what you enjoy, and this is what would bring glory to God. So I think when it comes to Sabbath keeping for our kids, presenting those alternatives and still allowing them to be children, because they're kids. They're not mini adults. They're kids, and they still need that element to help them in their growth as they turn into adults. So yep.
Agreed.
Yep. And I know we can go on and on and on. So Pastor Cozéma, I'm going to turn it over to you for Tuesdays and Wednesdays lessons. You have the mic right now.
Okay, thank you. So Tuesday time for learning priorities was really interesting for me because when I was in France and we were going to church with my mom and my sisters, my mom was always saying that on Saturday was the most busy day that we have of all week, because we were leaving in the morning around 7:30 in the morning, and we were getting home about 8 p.m., sometimes 9 p.m. And we were going to church, taking public transportation with the bag of food and everything. And we were going to church. And for me, I was like, I feel like I have more stuff to do on Sabbath than when I go to school. like, because like, and I wasn't really happy about it, because I had to, with my sister, we had to change, like, for this time of the way, I'm the one taking the bag, then she will take the bag after me, and then it was just really it was a burden type of thing to go to church on Sabbath, because like there was too many things to do, because, and in France we don't do pathfinders on Sundays, because everybody lives in the suburb, and we have to come in the city, in Paris to go to church. So everything was on Saturdays, like pathfinder on Saturday, church choir rehearsal on Saturdays, everything was on Sabbath. And like, and it was really it wasn't a delight, like that, like the Sabbath school say, is Sabbath a delight? Now that I grow up, and I really understand the meaning of the Sabbath, now for me it's a delight to be able to share this moment with God, and really understand what it means to have the Sabbath. And so when we look at Tuesday, and I really love this, the text that they gave about Isaiah 58. So they gave the entire chapter. Like it's really interesting. Like when we see like the people of Israel, they like, oh, we fasting, and we do this and we do that, and you are not looking upon us. But how did you do it? Why? It wasn't with a honest heart. Like they did it while they were doing it. They were like the verse say that they it's in verse 3 of the chapter 58. They say, you oppress all your workers while you fasting, while you pretend to honor me. You oppressing your own brother and sister. So what do you want me to answer to you? Because you are oppressing the people that just as you are. And it's really and I try to approach the lesson on Tuesday and Wednesday in the eye of the pandemic. And I'm like, we like when there wasn't the pandemic, we were going shopping in the restaurant, we can do everything. And now we starting complaining, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, I cannot do, we cannot, like, and I feel like the pandemic is like a long Sabbath. Like we cannot do anything. So I was like, they say that the Israelite, they have ups and downs, but I was asking myself, is the pandemic is really a down, or is it like we say that that's from the devil? It's because of sin. Yes, it is because of sin that we have the pandemic. But what about we have the pandemic and God is calling us to refocus, to really acknowledge what it is to have a Sabbath, to reconnect with him, to re-educate ourselves, because we are in education, re-educate ourselves of really knowing the meaning of the Sabbath, to spend time with him, to communicate with him, to be in communion with him on the Sabbath, and not being just focused on ourselves, on the fact that, like, having, like, because on Sabbath we invite everybody over, and we go to everybody. So we always have. So I discovered potluck when I came to the U.S., because in France we don't we don't really do potluck. When they invite you, you just come with your belly empty and you just eat. Like, so when I get to Oakwood, when I came to Oakwood, it's like, we have potluck. What do you bring? What do you bring? And stuff. And so that was really interesting for me. And so and I really love it, because it was a new culture that I was coming across to. So it was really interesting. But I was like, when we do our potluck, or we go, or even in France when we go to eat over at somebody's house, are we really refocusing on God, or are we just having discussion just because we are all together. And so it was really interesting for me to rethink what is the Sabbath, because during the pandemic we don't do potluck. I mean, at least here we don't do it. We don't go to church. We like you were saying before, we just like trying to see at what time this church is on YouTube, at what time this church is on Zoom. So it's all we do all day. And so I was thinking of the fact that on Sabbath we can re-educate ourselves to see like what Adam and Eve were doing, and so what we can do now. Like even in the midst of the pandemic, we can still go to a park and just be with our family and just be in the midst of what God created, the trees, the little ant going on the ground, or the flower growing, like just um going back to what was at first, because it's a learning our priorities. And um uh, and and that was really interesting for me. And also um when we go through the text of Isaiah 58, we discover like God saying to Isaiah the type of worship that is really enjoying, the type of worship that's really pleasing him. And and I feel like this text is really helping us. Like I was reading in welfare ministry from Ellen White, and she has the whole chapter 3 of welfare ministry is about Isaiah 58, and she called the chapter divine prescription. So when I read that, I was like, it's almost like the doctor give us the prescription already to how we're supposed to live a Sabbath. And so I'm thinking of the fact that we have it right there in front of us, but what are we doing with it? And at which point are we going to take it into consideration and really apply it in our life? And I feel like the pandemic right now is the right moment for that. And for Tuesday, that was really interesting, because like it made me rethink and see that the Sabbath is a moment where we were really we should be delighted to be in communion with God and really refocus on Him and what He has done for us. So this is my take on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, time for balance. So that was really funny, because like I feel like I'm the most unbalanced person in the world. So that was really interesting. And seeing like when we read Matthew 12 and Luke 13, and how because the disciple were walking and they take some of the grain, and because Jesus healed the end of this man, and he healed the lady who was sick for 18 years, how the Pharisees came at him and telling him about the law. And like I was that remind me about the fact that so God gave the children of Israel the 10 commandments. And I feel like even for us today, the 10 commandments sometimes is so hard to keep. And I see that the Jewish community has 613 laws. And I'm like, how how will I do that? Like, because like I feel like I'm struggling to keep the 10. And it's telling you like if you go against one of them, it's like you did wrong all of them. So if there is 613, I'm like that's big. That's too big. There is too many. So and to see how Jesus starts telling them like if your sheep fell in a well, you will go and take it. So why you cannot heal your what the healing cannot happen for this person right there when it's available? And like, and even make me again think about me, what so like now there is the pandemic, and I'm just staying at home on Sabbath, and I'm calling my family and friends, and watching YouTube to see which to watch services and stuff like that. And I'm like, I should do something more meaningful. And it's not because it's a pandemic that I cannot go, like maybe buy some granola bar, make some little bags, and go out and find people who are in need, and help. Even if it's not a lot, but like with the means that I have, just be useful for someone else instead of just being sitting at home and watching and waiting for all the services in different time zone to come across me. What about me going across someone else, to cross somebody else's path and be a blessing for someone else? So uh, I was really happy to do to read the lesson this week, because like it really make me rethink about what God is really waiting for us to do, and for us to be, not only do something but be someone else, like be the person He called us to be, like just being helpful to our brother and sister who are in need. Because like even in the midst of the pandemic, like sometimes when I'm watching the news and I see all those people who are out of work right now and cannot even go grocery shopping, we can see all those lines of people waiting to get a bag of food, and it's really painful. And so if with a granola bar, or I don't know, something else, like make sandwiches and just bring them to people who are just there. Like I see here in Huntsville, it's starting getting cold, and people are in the street. So what are we doing for those people? What am I doing for those people? Because sitting in my couch on Sabbath morning, I'm not helping nobody. I'm not even really helping myself, because like we're supposed to bring those who are outside in. But if I'm staying inside all by myself, what am I doing? So yeah, I was thinking about all of that, and the lesson really like shake me a little bit, like about myself, about the life that I'm living in the midst of the pandemic. So yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned all of that, because it is true. You know, when Christ came on this earth, he just came to put things into perspective.
Exactly.
And the things that we would think would be common sense for us, after a while, because of all those things that were heaped up. You talk about those 613 laws that was piled up on the 10, you know, so things that should have been common sense wasn't common anymore. You know, and so Christ had to break through and say, no, you know, let's not just talk about the letter of the law. Let's talk about the principle of the law, and the matter that gets to the heart of each one of us. And so yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because like you said, some days we need to not be so burdened on doing stuff on the Sabbath, because I know as a pastor, Sabbaths are like the worst days ever for us. We have no Saturday, no Sunday, you know. That's our, you know, we're ripping and running. And even for someone who's working all during the week, you know, you come to the Sabbath, yeah, you want to just get on the couch and don't move.
Yeah.
But then we also have to put it into perspective. The Sabbath is not just for physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, but also to break the chains for
Exactly.
someone else.
Exactly.
And that's what Christ proclaimed when he says, I've come to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. You know, and in that he also said, and to break the chains. So on the Sabbath, that's what he was doing. You know, not only was he teaching, so you know, so we don't just do cerebral activity on Sabbath. We also break the chains for someone else, as the Lord leads us to, because we got to go. We got to ask him, where do I go today to do your ministry?
Exactly.
You know, to be used by you. And we do that because, and I'm gonna go into my section real quick. We do that because, like Thursday brings out, we are community. Sabbath is a time for community.
Yeah.
It's a time for us to connect to others that perhaps we wouldn't have taken the time to think about connecting with. And I like what you said about the pandemic. The pandemic has brought a lot of families back together.
Yeah.
Families who were separated because of either mom or dad working too hard, and so the kids don't have, or the wife don't have time with the husband, and the husband don't see the wife. They're like passing each other. What's the shadows passing at night? And because, you know, they work two different shifts or whatever the case may be, they feel the need to work 2 and 3 jobs. You know, some of us are like that. And sometimes you got to say enough is enough. And I think in this pandemic, God was like, okay, I've been saying enough is enough, and some of y'all haven't been listening. So here comes now the pandemic where we can listen. And so I'm praying that as some of us have refocused, like you said, that when certain things get alleviated, perhaps outside of the pandemic, when certain things are taken care of that we no longer have to worry about, because we don't know the future. We don't know if we'll get a bit of a reprieve from what's happening. But I pray that if we get a reprieve, we don't go back to the old ways of being and doing things. And I believe that is part of what, you know, Christ was trying to let his folks know. And I know I only have about 7 minutes. So in 3 minutes, I want to say something, some other time about Thursday lesson, is that we need to understand, and sometimes I forget this, that God is a relational God.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at other religions, we have gods that are far away from humanity, and humanity has to do whatever they have to do to please the gods or God. But in the Bible, we see the true God is a relational God, and therefore it is only expected that he would institute time for us to be in community with him and with each other. It's to be expected when we understand that he's a relational God. And so we see that even with Christ when he was here on earth. Yes, he went to the synagogue every Sabbath. Faithful. Faithful. He was in synagogue every Sabbath. He taught and he healed. But sometimes, you know, on the outside, you know, of that, he was out in the wilderness, teaching, preaching, healing. And so sometimes we can see that we have fellowship with others on the Sabbath in a place of worship, but we also find fellowship with others outside in nature. And so Christ did not always take folks in, you know, he didn't always stay in a synagogue. We see that he also went out to the wilderness to have people out there in nature so that they can contemplate on the lessons that he taught him, that he was teaching them. So even with us, even when some of us have returned back to our churches, in smaller numbers, of course, or by casting lots, but whichever way, you know, whether we're still at home or whether we're but a few in church, do not forget that example of Christ. He also went out to where the people were. He went out into nature. He went out to where people were and did, like Pastor Cozéma said, and did good for them, healed them. And on the Sabbath, it's good to do good. On the Sabbath.
Indeed.
It certainly is good to do good on the Sabbath. And so we have to, in whatever we do for Sabbath keeping, we have to ask ourselves, does this bring glory to God? What I'm doing, does it bring glory to him? And does it further, you know, his work? Whether it's within myself or within another being, another person's being. And I know that he is going to lead us, however which way, if we really and truly desire to be led by him. You know, and I just want to read this little clip before we go. We have about 5 minutes or so. Out from Desire of Ages, page 288 and 289. It's in our lesson on Fridays. It says, the Sabbath is a sign of Christ's power to make us holy. As a sign of his sanctifying power, the Sabbath is given to all who through Christ become a part of the Israel of God. So don't forget that, you know, the Sabbath was made for us. Yeah. First of all, he knew we were going to forget to rest. Some of us are workaholics. Mm-hmm. We would even work ourselves to death on the Sabbath and say we doing the work of God.
Yes.
Okay, don't cover your work, your burden by claiming it to be the work of God, unless God has asked you to do that specific thing. And so that lesson in Isaiah 58, we need to go back and consider, put things into right perspective and consider whether we might be burdening ourselves or others on the Sabbath. Yeah. By some of the things that we do. And it's all, the Sabbath is a time to be free, to rest, to rejuvenate, and to be free. Mm-hmm. We see it all in Christ. Now, we have a couple more minutes. We have about 5 more minutes. So I'm gonna give my panelists their last go to say what they want to say about all of that. Let's start with Brother Davis.
Okay, thank you. In looking at the Sabbath, I think if you look at it in terms of things that happen once a week, you look at Florida, for example, is huge in high school football, or Texas. Friday night lights, that's their thing. Every Friday, they're so excited, the whole town ready to shut down because football is coming. Or if you look at a relationship, it's date night. All right, it's Thursday night. Thursday night is date night. All right, and no time with the kids. My spouse and I, we are going to go out on our date, whatever that is, and we look forward to that time together. Mm-hmm. Whatever, if we look at Sabbath and we look at how many different activities can we do on the Sabbath and say, okay, this week we're doing this, to where your kids are so excited about, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to be doing this week? So whether it's volunteering, and then that's a way to get the Great Commission involved with what Pastor Cozéma talked about with going out and into the community. Volunteering, things of that nature, and say, okay, all of these different activities. Let's see what we're going to do. We're going to do this activity this week. This week we're going to feed the homeless. Or if you have a child who doesn't quite understand empathy. Let's say I want to teach empathy. We might go by Children's Hospital just to find out some information about what's going on with some of the children there, to understand I have to be empathetic and I have to now appreciate what it is that I have. So we can teach all of these valuable life lessons, keep the Sabbath, have all of these different activities. And now the Sabbath, instead of becoming that burden, now becomes that delight because it's, oh, this week we're going to do this. And this week we're going to do this. And even if they act as many kids will do, is if they don't want to spend that time with their parents or who aren't cool enough, they're going to realize that, wow, they've poured into me, they're investing in me, they want to spend this time with me, they're making this effort. And I think about the children will appreciate it, God is going to appreciate it, we want to please God. We're going to look at the Sabbath now as a totally different experience. And now we get an opportunity to not only that, to show others, because again, back to the Great Commission, to show others, this is what the Sabbath is. It's not just this church service and we sing and, oh, look at this great music at Mount Calvary. Oh, the preaching is really good at Mount Calvary. Look at what we have. You now begin to see all of the other things take place. The community, the time spent with children, family, all of these things now become more important. And we are keeping the Sabbath holy as well. So win-win is the way I view it.
Amen. Amen. You're talking about being intentional.
Yes, ma'am.
Intentional on the Sabbath. That's what it's called for. Pastor Cozéma, last words.
I will just read the verse 10 and 11 from Isaiah 58, about the promise that God gave us if we do what He wants from us instead of doing our own pleasure. So it said, and if you offer yourself to the hungry and satisfies the afflicted one, then your light will shine in the darkness and your night will be like noonday. The Lord will always lead you, satisfy you in a parched land, and strengthen your bones. You will be like a watered garden and like a spring whose waters never run dry. And I feel like it's important because there is so many promises in the Bible, but in doing the work of God, I feel like we can get so much more from that than doing our own pleasure. So I think it's really important for us to not just say it, but really be Brother Neale was saying, being intentional in redirecting, refocusing ourselves in what God wants from us and for us too. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. I have enjoyed our panelists today. Thank you so much for being willing to be here with us, Pastor Cozéma, Brother Neale Davis. Woo, we got to have you back on here again. Probably next quarter. Next quarter is coming. So I'll be calling you guys. But we have enjoyed ourselves, and we're just hoping that with each one of you who are watching this Sabbath, that something in here has inspired you to do more on the Sabbath, or whichever area you see that you need to be more intentional about on the Sabbath. We pray that that you got what you needed for your soul here, because hey, the Sabbath is a delight. God made it for us to enjoy, and we're so thankful that you've spent some time here with us for Sabbath school before you church hop. And so we're so thankful once again. And if you want to give to Sabbath school, just remember you can go to our website at mountcalvary.org. You can click on Giving tab, or you can use our Cash App. Or if you just want to come in, personally, just come in. We're here on Mondays from 5 to 7 p.m. To receive your tithes, your offering, your donations. We are still taking canned goods donations because we still are feeding the hungry. And we will be giving out the Christmas presents as well to the community that was in need. And so for those of you who did drop off those presents, we thank you so much for your donation. I also want to have a little bit of an announcement here for Sabbath School before we go. We do know that unfortunately our dear sister Janice Allen, one of our prayer warriors, passed away. And so we want you to know that we are having her wake today from 5 to 6 p.m. And her funeral will be tomorrow, the 20th at 10 a.m. at Harmon Funeral Home. You know, the funeral home is right next to us here at the church. So for those of you who don't know, you just, if you don't know where Harmon is, you put in Mount Calvary, SDA, we're right next. Harmon is right next to us. So that's Harmon, Harmon. And we are going to have her wake today, like I said, from 5 to 6 p.m. and then her funeral tomorrow, Sunday, the 20th at 10 a.m. If there's any other questions you have, you can contact one of her family members. I'm not sure of a live stream, but you can contact family members to find out if you're unable to attend. And at this moment, we are going to close out our Sabbath School hour. Just be ready for divine service at 11:30, where we will have our Christmas program. And we do have an awesome program in store for you. We have one of our guest recording artists, gospel recording artists with us. So you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for 11:30. You are going to be blessed. And then on Sunday, between the hours from 2 to 4, we have our live nativity scene that you can come through, and our nativity program. It's live nativity, folks. It's a drive-through, but still have your masks and everything ready to go. And perhaps Caesar will also require taxes from you as you enter in. I'm just saying. So just be prepared for this whole weekend of fun. We thank everyone for supporting us, and we hope that you are blessed with everything that you encounter here today on the Sabbath and on tomorrow as we celebrate our Christmas season, the birth of Christ, in the best way we know how here at Mount Calvary. And at this time, we're going to close out, and we're going to have our brother Neale Davis, if you can close that out for us in a word of prayer.
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for another Sabbath, for another opportunity, Lord, to learn more about you. We thank you for this Sabbath school lesson that's taught us about learning more about you, about your Sabbath, about becoming lifelong learners. Lord, help us to take what we've learned and put it into action so that we can be better examples of you, so we can lead others to you, so we can learn more about you, so we can become better Christians, better followers of you. Lord, be with the family of Sister Allen. Lived a long life. Just continue to be with them. Be with those who are suffering from the pandemic. We know that there may be trouble now, but we know that in the end, you are more than able and capable of fixing things. So Lord, just continue to be with us, watch over us during the Sabbath, help us to make it more of a delight instead of a burden. Forgive us of all our many sins, be with all of those who are represented here. We love you, Lord, we honor you, we worship you, we adore you. We ask all these things in your son's precious name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.